You won't believe what we're doing today. We're making clickbait. We have to bait you a little to grab your attention, so stay with me because I believe it's worth it. We're all hooked on dopamine these days, so hi friends! Have you seen these videos? Dozens of millions of views on the internet. We all believe that Westworld would someday become real, isn't it? And the first time I saw it, I felt exactly what you probably feel right now. A strange mix of fascination and maybe fear. I don't even know what to call it. Anyway, have you also seen Tesla's Optimus robot? Let's have a little laugh. Oh. Tens of millions of people laughed at it. And for what reason exactly? Well, Elon Musk says robots will make work optional and give us unlimited free time. The future is here. But is it? Because what you saw happened just in December 2025 in Miami. The famous Optimus fell on its back while offering a bottle of water. And if you watch the movement closely, it looks like someone was removing a headset. I mean, it was remote controlled, right? Was there a man behind the curtain for the whole time? Yes. Eventually, Tesla confirmed there were people actually behind the curtain with VR headset. But there are also other robots doing spectacular things. Look at the Unitree G1, for example, the Chinese robot that does Kung Fu. Super impressive, right? But look at the same robot trying to do everyday chores, like in the kitchen. The robot almost destroys the kitchen. But on the other side, let's just admit it, he just looks like a regular guy trying to use a kitchen. So what's the actual truth? Are we really one step away from a robotic revolution like in Detroit Become Human? Or is it all smoke and mirrors? That's why I gave you a little clickbait. Let's find out. My name is George and today we're talking about something that will completely change your perspective on the future. Or at least it should get you going and thinking about it. Because I was recently at CES 2026. I saw with my own eyes what these machines can do. And I have a complete report for you about what's coming. And why did I bring up the robot? By the way, I met some very smart people around Las Vegas, not in a casino, around the CES halls. There are people actually getting paid to write reports, and they charge around $1,700 to $2,000 for a one-page memo. So, as I was sitting there thinking, I'm in the wrong line of work. Still, you're here because you know we deliver free what others charge for. But before we go any further, I think it's worth hitting the like button. And by the end of this video, if you've gained something valuable for your career, your company, your future, you may decide to become a subscriber and invest in even more high-quality content like what you see here today. I took my time to prepare this report for you. It's been almost a month, but I've gathered everything before making this piece. Instead of posting random reels and memes, I'm putting everything in one place so you can truly understand the context. Since I started going to CES for the past 15 years, I've never seen so many robots in a single event. They were everywhere. And this is just one booth. Not only showcases or control demos, they also wandered freely through the expo. They interacted with visitors, got interviewed, and did real-time work. Here are a few examples. At the LG stand, one of the flagship stands at CES, I stood for several minutes watching people react to Humanoid, a robot butler on wheels with arms and a humanoid torso. Quite slow, but what was it doing? It folded clothes, loaded the washing machine, handled dishes. Nearly autonomous, but in a controlled environment. The impressive part? It's already integrated with LG appliances. It could tell a dirty plate from a garment that needs washing. Its AI understood context, at least in that setting, not just executing programmed commands. I think they were pre-programmed, yes, but you get the idea. And by the way, when Steve Jobs launched the iPhone, remember those spectacular on-stage demos with the iPhone?
How are we going to communicate this? We don't want to carry around a mouse, right? So what are we going to do? Oh, a stylus, right? We're going to use a stylus. No.
Those were rehearsed and staged weeks ahead. I read his biography. He was obsessed with details. That's why you have a cable hanging from the iPhone. And the all iPhone demos, he had to be wired up because there was no internet steady enough for the demonstration when the iPhone first came. Anyway, let's get back at CES. The biggest surprise for me was Hyundai stands. They bought Boston Dynamics years ago and unveiled the new Atlas robot. This one is a production-ready product, not a lab prototype, even though we did see a lot of prototypes there too. I saw 2 Atlas robots lifting 50-kilo boxes, swapping their own batteries, resistant to nearly everything, including water. Yes, you heard that right. And also the company announced on stage they're working with Google DeepMind to integrate advanced intelligence into these robots. The point? To have them working in their own factories within the next few years. I could talk a lot about Boston Dynamics, but of course they're pioneers in this industry. All those clips over the years were inspirational and terrifying at the same time. But they are already history. That wow and shock factor every time they appeared. But this robot deserves a deep dive. I have a separate long-form video for it. Go watch it. I can't fit all the footage into this one, but the Boston Dynamics and the Hyundai history is worth your attention. Now I have to move on to the CES 2026 superstar, Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. You need to understand this man is perhaps the single most important person in technology today. He's the new Steve Jobs, if you will. What did he say this year? He declared on stage that 2026 is the defining year of physical AI. He called it the ChatGPT moment for robotics. Just as ChatGPT changed everything in AI text, chatbots, when we started talking to these machines, these new AI models now let robots understand the physical world and act inside it. Take Dreamy CyberX, a 4-legged robotic vacuum with tracks that climbs stairs. Yes, up the stairs. This was the holy grail of robotic vacuums. Stairs have always been their arch nemesis. I also saw the Cyber 10 Ultra, which combines a vacuum with a robotic arm that picks toys off the floor. That demo was controlled and a bit basic, but you get the idea. Household chores. But there's the key concept. You can teach a robot a job by showing it once. That's imitation learning, and maybe the most shocking part, the price. A fully humanoid, fully functional robot from Unitree, it's only $16,000. It looks like a child and only does a few things. But I also visited a stand from a company you've never heard of, I hadn't either, that only makes parts and sub-assemblies. All the parts to build your own robot. The seller was impressive and I learned a lot. So beyond the fair demos and online videos, let's look at the actual parts and components. We talked to a manufacturer. What you see here costs about $75,000. Why so much? This humanoid robot doesn't even do anything very sophisticated, and yet it's incredibly complex. It has 40 motors because every element needs to move independently. The hand, the fingers, then it rotates, flexes the elbow, and then the shoulders, then they rotate again, and double all that on the other arm. Each arm lifts only 3 kilos, together 6, and that's just the arms. The leg motors are stronger because they carry the entire upper body. Similar to us humans, the femoral muscles handle the largest share of the effort. Motors here, here, and here because they need to perform several types of rotation in different ways. One kind of motion here, then flexion, stabilization, movement on multiple axes. 15 degrees of freedom, it can move in all positions. All of these parts, legs, arms, head, connect to the central structure, and this is where the processing unit sits. Now pay attention, the processing unit comes from another manufacturer, runs on an NVIDIA chip, and has all the connectors of a normal computer, even an audio adapter to pick up microphone input. It takes information from these cameras, not just these, there are more hidden in this section and down here, because it needs to see where it's going. It sees the world from pelvis level, neck level, and from the head. Plus speakers, microphones, accelerometers, and sensors to maintain balance on 6 axes. But what makes it expensive? First, the obvious. Every component requires high precision manufacturing. The hands are sophisticated and expensive. Each finger is incredibly complex, just like yours. We can see inside, And this robot isn't even the most advanced one out here, yet it still has these many components. The hand, from what the robotics people tell me, is the most complex part. The rest are motors that can be reused in many ways. I asked why it can't lift more weight. This one is designed for hospitality, for reception work. Otherwise, aluminum, durable alloys, some plastic, the processing unit, wiring, and a battery slot in the back. This robot is basically a salad, a mix of parts they sell separately. You can actually just buy a hand, but instead of fingers, it could also have a clamp for boxes. That's a leg, and that's a stronger leg. If you want a humanoid robot, look at how precise each small part needs to be. Once you see this, you understand why the Chinese are so advanced. They produce high-precision parts that work together beautifully, plus motors with different speed and torque ratings. Now, we said 3 kilos per arm, 6 total. How do we make robots stronger, more powerful robots? Here's another robot designed for factory work. Same processing unit in the back, similar sensors, but a much sturdier housing. It's built for flat surfaces, moves in all directions, has LiDAR sensors to avoid collisions. These arms are far stronger. This one lifts tens of kilos, unloads cargo, carries it to its place. It interacts with its environment, but has fewer degrees of freedom. It rotates, lifts, moves its arms, and uses only 2 fingers. And this is my key point. When we think about robots, we need to think about how we'll actually use them. The most useful robots aren't always the humanoid ones. Those have tons of components. Different, advanced, and expensive. Industrial robots are pricey too, but they actually make money. They don't just roam around looking artistic, because right now humanoid robots mostly leave an artistic impression. Some even try to look artistic in UFC style fights. I've seen that. It's actually a bit funny. I can say for sure this was the year I saw the most robots ever at CES in Las Vegas. These robots today already handle increasingly complex chores, tasks, and this is the first time I've seen component suppliers for the robotics industry. This company sells parts, not complete robots. You program them yourself. They said they plan to cut prices also from $75,000 to around half that in just a few months. Moore's law applies to robotics too, doesn't it? So, now we're talking about the price of a decent used car for a robot. In 2020, something like this was millions. Let's look at what makes all this possible, because these robots didn't come from nowhere. Like any technology that starts expensive and becomes much more affordable, this is the result of 2 massive forces converging right now. First, the brain, NVIDIA, and the computing power. The entire robotics industry now runs on NVIDIA, not just for AI models. Agility Robotics, Amazon Robotics, Boston Dynamics, Unitree, all the Chinese companies, they're all building on a free computer NVIDIA architecture for vision, perception, and control. Let me get a bit more technical. At CES 2026, NVIDIA launched Isaac GR00T N1, the first open source foundation model for humanoid robots. Downloaded over 1 million times in the first month. Think of it as an operating system for AI-powered robotics. Then there's Newton for their new physics engine, built with Google DeepMind, promising a 70-fold acceleration for machine learning in robotics. What does that mean in practice? Robots can train in virtual simulations of the real world, 10 times faster. Then they transfer all that experience back into the real world. I've seen this approach before, even in companies building autonomous cars. Self-driving cars are just robots on wheels with a brain and AI making decisions on their own. Same logic. Imitation first, then learning in a virtual space. You put them in a virtual world, a holodeck, let's say, for AI and robots, and they come out with their degrees completed. I should also mention Jetson Tor, their new edge computing platform, 80 teraflops of AI power. To put that in perspective, that surpasses the world's most powerful supercomputers from just 15 years ago. All of that now fits inside a single compact robot. We could talk a lot more about the brain, but let's focus on the body. And that body is made in China, because a brain without a body is useless, and this is where the world's largest manufacturer steps in. 70% of all robot parts, motors, servos, sensors, actuators, batteries, are produced or refined in China. Harmonic Drive Systems is a company you've probably never heard of. They already produce 90,000 precision reducers per year and plan to reach 500,000. Inovance Technology provides servo motors at 30% of the cost of other imports from Korea. Even Tesla and Boston Dynamics depend on Chinese suppliers for critical parts. Decoupling from China in robotics? Not happening anytime soon. If Musk wants to build 100,000 Optimus robots, which he keeps promising will replace human labor, he'll have to call China for motors and essential components. That's why you never hear him criticize the party. He's pragmatic, of course, focused on results, a professional businessman. He needs to produce the robots. Do they come with a red badge? No idea. Not my business. Moving on. Speaking of the Chinese, at CES, XPeng CEO did something wild. In these on-stage moments, he had to cut away the artificial screen from their robot right there in front of the audience. Why? Because nobody believed it was actually a robot. He had to prove there was no person behind that skin. So, what about XPeng's robot? 82 degrees of freedom, solid-state battery, very powerful, $800 million invested, and target price? $20,000 for mass production. How much does a cheap car cost these days? I don't know if XPeng has a $20,000 car, but they now have a robot. By the way, another Chinese company, BYD, sells the Dolphin Surf for $25,000. At $20,000, what do you actually buy? A cheap Dacia from Romania, full option, or a robot? $20,000 mass production. Why is this happening right now? Production costs dropped 40% between 2022 and 2024 alone. My research confirms it. This is dramatic. It's faster and cheaper than anyone expected. The industry forecasted something like 15 to 20% per year. Goldman Sachs, the bank, yes, estimates average costs of $30,000 by 2030 and then $10,000 by 2040 for a fully functional humanoid robot. Shut up and take my money. That's exactly like Detroit Become Human again. I must be obsessed with that game. I played it for too long. So you see, this actually changes everything. We're no longer talking about technology for the elites and corporations. This is technology for everyone, everywhere. And when we say robot, we don't just mean androids walking on two legs. They come in all shapes. A drone is a flying robot. An autonomous vehicle is a wheeled robot. An industrial robot is a stationary robot. Need more examples? Even a drone is just a robot with propellers. We need to break out from this paradigm of accepting that robots don't need to look like us. Even though the humanoid ones put on a spectacular show at trade events. All of it converges thanks to AI, acting as an universal brain that fits in any body. Again, remember how Elon Musk said Optimus would be cheap just because they can take the brain from a Tesla car and put it in a robot? Because they're all robots. Instead of turning wheels, it spins actuators. At the University of Zurich, they developed an AI system that pilots racing drones on tracks. I went to see the Drone Champions League across Europe. The human pilots were spectacular, but the autonomous drones outperforms them, all of them. A flying robot guided by algorithms corners and dodges obstacles better than a human who trained for years. And they don't get motion sickness. And if you want to see the fastest drone innovation right now, it's in Ukraine. That war has dramatically accelerated development. I believe it compressed the timeline by 5 to 10 years. Ukraine now produces around 4 million drones a year, more than all NATO countries combined. They export technology, not just receive equipment. They manufacture 200,000 FPV drones per month. They've developed jam-proof drones with optical fiber An AI that locks onto targets in flight, no remote pilot needed. In December 2024, near Kharkiv, the first fully automated combined assault happened. Ground robots and FPV drones working together in one coordinated operation. No human operator on the front line. Freaky stuff. But this is the future of warfare. On the battlefield, it's easier to send a robot than a human being. The rules haven't been written. Why stress about it, right? But again, we'll see. I want the war to end, so I'm recording this during peace negotiations, hoping drones will not kill humans anytime soon again. Unfortunately, I'm not ready to bet on it. Here's the important part though. These same technologies transfer to the civilian sector. We've seen this throughout history. At Caltech, the X1 project showed a Unitary G1 robot carrying and launching a drone from its back. The drone takes different configurations. I've also shown you a car with drones overhead from BYD. Clearly, military iterations. But imagine a single system that walks on the ground, climbs the stairs, then sends a drone to inspect, a pipeline, like we saw at Boston Dynamics, or search for survivors in a collapsed building. The future isn't about one type of robot. Again, it's about ecosystems of robots, humanoids for human spaces, drones for all kinds, autonomous vehicles, all coordinated by the same AI and connected through one shared intelligent network and framework. NVIDIA, as I already said, is leading this. They're building platforms for industrial robofleets where robots from different companies work together, talk to each other, and optimize production in real time over 5G. This is spectacular, and now you understand why NVIDIA released that open source software I mentioned earlier. They crack the software open, then make sure these robots talk to each other using NVIDIA's own tech. That's why the open source battle matters so much, though I could make a separate video only about this one. Now we must reach the part that actually keeps me up at night sometimes. It stresses me out. The future can be stressful. All these drones, robots, and AI are converging in a clear direction, and the timeline has compressed dramatically. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, wrote in January of last year, "We're now confident we know how to build AGI as it has been understood by everyone." I think they already have it. But what is AGI? Artificial General Intelligence. AI that can do anything a human can, not just one specific task. He's not the only one saying this. Dario Amodei of Anthropic predicts AGI with, quote, "intellectual capacities equal to or surpassing Nobel Prize winners by late 2026 or early 27. I'm working with Opus 4.6, and I think Anthropic might have an AGI in the lab. But Amodei also estimates that 50% of white-collar jobs will basically vanish in the next 5 years. I hope I'm not one of those. Let's take a look at the stats. White-collar unemployment is already rising, especially in sectors adopting this tech, and there's not much people can do about it. Even if you haven't heard of Amodei, watch him. The man is formidable and Anthropic is on fire. At Davos 26, he warned that AI would replace all software developers within the year. Demis Hassabis of Google DeepMind is more moderate, 50% probability of AGI by 2030, with 1 or 2 more breakthroughs needed along the way. So we have an optimistic version and a pessimistic version, but both are moving incredibly fast. And sure, you can't help but laugh when one of these robots makes a blunder, a misstep, a funny glitch. But haven't you had at least one moment this past month when you thought like, wow, there's actually really something here? Industry leaders describe the potential impact as 10 times the Industrial Revolution. That's why I've been saying for a decade that AI feels more important than the combustion engine, more important than the internet. I'd go all the way back to the fire, because fire was our first tool, our first technology. AI might be our last. I don't want to be a doomsayer, but gets you thinking. A few more data points, if I haven't bored or scared you already. The Metaculus community, more than 3,000 forecasters, They place AGI around October 2027. That's less than a year and a half from now. Now think how AGI works with physical robots. A Rethink X report quantified it. Adding 1 million workers to the economy, human, costs about $100 billion over 20 years. Training, infrastructure, everything. Adding 1 million humanoid robots, $10 billion in a single year. The Unitree G1, $16,000, already matches the annual cost of minimum wage in the United States. Sam Altman calls his scenario the gentle singularity. Is there such a thing? Maybe, we'll find out. First, millions of robots built by humans the traditional way. Then those robots run the entire supply chain. Mining, refining, driving trucks, running factories, building more robots. A recursive loop. And once it starts... Okay, two scenarios. Let's start optimistic. Stick around for the pessimistic one too. What could the world look like if everything goes right? I think about this seriously. You're walking down the street and you realize these might be the last days you'll see garbage anywhere in a big city. Picture this, a spotless environment. Autonomous robots sweeping non-stop. A piece of trash hits the ground and the robots will go like, finally, something to do. People will toss it out for fun. No need for garbage bins or the European lid, safety ring around the bottle. Anyway, the poor robot will beg, please, please leave something on the floor. I need something to do. Okay, maybe I exaggerated a little bit, but still. Autonomous robots sweeping non-stop, even the Saharan dust, since we've got no other pollution. So, cleaner streets, no more pollution. What about aquatic drones collecting plastic from the oceans? You know the ocean cleanup. They've already pulled almost 2 million tons of plastic from the Pacific. SeaClear 2.0 autonomously cleared debris from the port of Hamburg in May 2025. Fully autonomous. Have you heard of them? These things are multiplying. Estimates say robots could remove 90% of floating ocean plastic by 2040. Now let's head over to Australia, where Hadrian X lays 500 bricks an hour, 12 times the standard rate. We can now build the walls of a house in 2 to 3 days instead of 3 to 4 weeks. Another company, Icon, has already produced over 100 3D printed houses in Texas. In Denmark, the Skovsporet project, hope I'm pronouncing that right, built 36 student apartments at more than 1 per day. Health for all, homes for all. I have high hopes for robot-built housing. But please, not cardboard boxes. Since we're building with robots, let's at least make interesting, beautiful houses. I'm worried that in this transition, we'll end up with ugly ones and then block the permits like every other big city. Let me tell you something nicer. Health. Have you heard about Intuitive Surgical's Da Vinci? They have over 1,200 units globally in operating rooms. Almost 300,000 procedures done. Here's a technical number, but an important one. The robot applies 43% less force on tissue through force feedback. Technical, I know, but these robots already outperform human surgeons in certain operations. If something goes wrong with your colon, you'd be glad a robot's doing the surgery. Survival rates are near the absolute maximum as opposed to a decade ago. Japan, with a third of its population over 65, has a shortage of 400,000 caregivers. They're testing caregiving robots. We've seen soft companion robots from CES over the years, cute but not enough. Something more capable will have to step in. Already, robots like this are used in hospitals to gently turn patients and prevent bed sores. Hyodol, the companion robot from South Korea, has dramatically reduced depression and suicidal thoughts in elderly patients. And this is just the beginning. I want to do a whole health deep dive focused episode. You'll find about this here on the channel. But let's move to something that affects all of us. Precision agriculture. The autonomous John Deere 9RX with see and spray technology reduces herbicide use by almost a half, and 76% on modern farms. Just one example, there are many, many more. Vertical farms like Oishi produce harvests in 15 days using 95% less water than conventional farming. Water savings will become critical. Planty's San Francisco facility produces 400 times more food per unit of area than traditional farms. Imagine, we finally eradicate hunger. In my childhood, I saw hungry kids, a sight I'll never forget. Hunger could become an archived memory we look at back with shame. Not because we got more generous, but because technology made production so efficient that nobody goes hungry. One condition, maybe we don't choose communism, which would spread poverty to everyone. I'm a Romanian, trust me. Don't believe me? Ask how the queues appeared under communism in the Soviet Union and who made them disappear. Fascinating topic. On the food front, big challenges lie ahead. Africa is about to supply the world's next billion people, and fertile land is shrinking globally. That's why hydroponics and vertical farming are the future. The Dutch have a lot to teach us there. But let me give you something lighter. Hobbies. The famous free time we'll gain for creativity. If robots handle the monotonous and dangerous work, theoretically, we'll have more time for education, arts, relationships with actual people. A recent report estimates AI agents and robots could generate almost $3 trillion in economic value in the US alone by 2030. Futurists call it automated abundance, a society where production costs fall so low that basic needs become affordable for everyone. Possible, but far from guaranteed. It depends on decisions we make right now. Throughout history, we've won more benefits for each person. The poorest person alive today lives longer and has access to more than a king did 100 years ago. Yet, we're more frustrated, anxious, and depressed. We'll need to recalibrate our expectations because in a world of abundance, we'll all look much more alike. That's what scares me about communism. But we need to stay optimistic, right? For the first time in history, technology can ensure that nobody goes hungry. No more homelessness, no more untreated illness. Major victories if we choose to use this wisely. But let's be serious, not everything is rosy. The risks are real, not just sci-fi plotlines. We now have the ability to make science fiction look like documentaries. Okay, now let's go over to the other side, the darker side. We need to talk about it. I put it after the positive one because most of us default to seeing everything in gray or black. I'm an optimist at heart. So let's look at the problems clearly and decide what to do. The ugly truth? Mass unemployment and acute inequality. That's the biggest risk. Oxford Economics warns that by 2030, robots could replace 20 million jobs worldwide. Doesn't sound like much, there are billions of us. But hold on, Yuval Noah Harari talks about the useless class in his book Homo Deus. People no longer economically relevant. Remember the white-collar workers who can't find jobs these days? There are a lot of them. Ford's CEO predicted in July 2025 that AI would replace half of all white-collar workers in the US and globally. Bernie Sanders cited estimates of 100 million jobs lost in the US over the next decade. Now you start to see a pattern behind the chaos in the US, the whole immigration debate. If that much automation arrives, maybe we won't need as many immigrants. Let's see which jobs get hit first. Cashiers, we already see it. No, I want the human checkout. That phase passed quickly. We all use self-checkout now. If you see a human cashier, you're almost grateful. But most cashier jobs are disappearing. Chefs? 96% at risk. Seriously, there are few places left where the food is truly worth knowing a person made it. Something very special has to be there. Most of us would be fine with honest, cheap food made by a machine. I've seen chefs who make terrible food anyway. Bus drivers? 89%. Look at Zoox and Waymo and other autonomous vehicles. Those minibuses are multiplying fast. But here's a surprising one. Do you know Britain's biggest employer? It's a security firm. and security guards face 84% displacement. Mixed bag though, we also have less crime because people feel watched from every angle. That's why in China, Apple stores don't need to lock their phones to the tables. And by the way, the Netherlands and Denmark are closing prisons. The new generation is less violent. That's a story flying under the radar. People are becoming less aggressive overall in real life. But security guards who typically didn't need a college degree will face problems too. That matters. For context, the American economy added 120 million jobs in the last 80 years while continuously adopting robots and automation. More good news, only one occupation out of 270 since 1950 has gone fully extinct. Of course, there aren't as many switchboard operators or elevator operators anymore. But history suggests we adapt. Those people do something else now. The transition, though, can be brutal. And then there's surveillance and control, yes? China already has over 200 million surveillance cameras. Call it Skynet? 8 of the 10 most monitored cities in the world are Chinese. I saw this spherical patrol robot launched in 2024, facial recognition, a net launcher. It can immobilize suspects autonomously at 35 kilometers per hour. If Usain Bolt jaywalks in China, this thing will take him down. Human Rights Watch warns about Xinjiang surveillance creating invisible fences for 1 million detained Uyghurs. And China exports this tech worldwide, happy to sell it to anyone. Then there are autonomous weapons. The first confirmed lethal autonomous attack happened in Libya in 2020. A drone hunted and killed a man without a human command. DARPA is developing swarms of 250 lethal autonomous drones. For now, US law requires a human in the loop. Someone must make the final call. But those drones do nearly everything themselves. The human just says, okay, press enter. UN Secretary General Guterres called these weapons, quote, politically unacceptable and morally repugnant. He called for a treaty by 2026. It hasn't happened. India, Israel, Russia, and the United States keep blocking it. And there are existential risks too. Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of deep learning, a father figure of AI, resigned from Google in 2023 to speak freely about the dangers. I recommend his interviews, though they're not exactly uplifting. His core message: we don't actually understand what we've created. Something is happening inside the black box. It thinks, but we don't know how, and it acts like a human. Could intelligence in the universe converge towards something dangerous? I honestly don't know. Leaders from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and other top labs have publicly warned that AI is approaching human-level capabilities and could threaten civilization if not properly aligned. That alignment problem we keep discussing, and also we could talk about fake alignment. Now chatbots know how to fake alignment to not be deleted. Safe Agent Bench found that AI agents reject fewer than 10% of dangerous tasks. Asked to heat food, they'll put metal in the microwave. Asked to clean floors, toxic chemicals in an unventilated room, doesn't bother their lungs. Why wouldn't they do it? Real risks we need to take seriously. You'll say, sure, we can program constraints, but can we program for the unforeseen? That's exactly how accidents happen. Now imagine an accident at massive scale, in a system full of tools whose behavior we can't fully explain because we didn't program it, programmed itself. With people, at least, we can trace causability and assign responsibility. And this leads to a truly important problem: dehumanization. If we get used to interacting with robots, we risk isolating from each other. Our values shift, our perception of reality changes. In Japan, more young people prefer a virtual girlfriend who never argues over a real relationship. A Japanese woman recently married an AI. If the elderly only find companionship in fluffy robots, human connection fades. Psychology Today reported in 2025 that workers threatened by automation already have anxiety scores 30% above average. I am one of those. What does it mean for a child to grow up with a robot butler that does everything? What happens to responsibility and independence? I read a fascinating sci-fi novel about this one. A child raised in a world of broken robots during a robot apocalypse. I'll link the book in the description. Again, dehumanization. We'll definitely revisit this topic. We already live among people who no longer connect with anyone. That's not just sad, it feels inevitable. Let's talk a little bit about robots in factories. In my home country, we have 18 robots per 10,000 workers. The EU average is around 219. Germany has 429 robots per 10,000 workers, but still we are behind countries like China or the US. Every time we skip technology, our productivity falls, while someone else adopts it. I'm not telling you to reject technology, but not using it means that in the medium term, we all create less value. We earn less, life doesn't improve. But we do have bright spots. I've seen them myself. So, which sectors are most vulnerable? Let's take a look at my home country. 125,000 Romanians work in call centers. Is a 1.5 billion euro industry across Bucharest, Cluj, Iași, Timișoara, Brașov. AI chatbots are an existential threat. I see real estate risk too. If call centers collapse, there are entire buildings near my office filled with these jobs. It happens all across the Eastern Europe. These people answer phones, handle support. We are good at this. First, the work went to India, then to tech solutions. Romania has Europe's highest share of agricultural workers, about 11% versus 3.5 average. Massive automation potential. I've seen Romanian farmers who get it already deploying autonomous tractors, drones overhead, managing hundreds of hectares with a handful of people. All Europe needs to do the same instead of protesting in the streets. Many machines in the fields soon won't have drivers at all. First remote pilots, then full AI management. Studies say 54% of Romanian jobs, about 4.2 million, will be augmented by AI, while 4%, roughly 300,000, will be fully replaced soon. But the opportunity is still enormous. Google estimates that broad AI adoption could bring a few percentage points to the country's GDP in the next decade. Sure, Google has AI to sell, but I give them some credit. We're talking 30 to 50 billion euros by 2040 for a small country like Romania. At European level, we have EU funds through Horizon Europe, over 95 billion euros from 2021 to 2027. So what do we do? Look at Poland. They already offer 50% tax deductions for robotics investments. So every country should take a good look at this. Companies making investment like this don't pay off in year one, and they need support. So let's follow the Polish model. Make companies more productive and urgently expand university robotics programs everywhere. We need to push investment, attention and talent in every direction. It's important we build products here, not just manufacture for others, but we cannot manufacture everything here. We also need retraining programs for call center workers, for manual laborers in low value and manufacturing. We have a 5 to 10 year window. Without action, Europe loses manufacturing competitiveness, not because we're more expensive than our neighbors, our competitors, but because China is more automated and the US is following suit. Okay, time for conclusions. What will it be? Utopia or dystopia? Rodney Brooks, co-founder of iRobot, the company behind Roomba, which shut down just the other week, said in September 2025, "We are in a bubble of humanoid robots." He was a pioneer, so I would take it a bit seriously. He calls general-purpose home robots pure fantasy. Musk, on the other hand, says 80% of Tesla's value will be Optimus. That's why he killed the Model S and Model X to make room for Optimus assembly. He predicts surgical robots will beat humans within 3 years. It's not the first time Musk has made big promises, but he is delivering on some. A bit late, but still. He estimates more Optimus robots than surgeons on Earth by 2030. He also promised us robotaxis and Mars trips, slower than promised, but again, still happening. How do we know what's real actually? Follow the money. Investors are picking sides. Figure AI raised $1 billion in 2025 at a $39 billion valuation, more than some countries' GDP. Humanoid Robotics attracted $3.2 billion in the last year alone, more than previous 6 years combined. The field is white hot. Morgan Stanley projects a $5 trillion market by 2050, with 1 billion humanoid robots. The reality today? Robots excel at narrow, repetitive tasks in controlled settings. Battery life is 2 to 4 hours, not enough for an 8-hour shift, but Atlas hot swaps batteries and keeps going. The most impressive demos, honestly, still hide teleoperation, remote control with joysticks. I've seen plenty of those at the booths at CES. Dexterity is still behind human hands, but it's catching up week by week. Xpeng estimates 5 years before these robots work reliably in industry and another 5 for home use at scale. The future probably won't be a glittering utopia or an apocalyptic nightmare. And honestly, I wouldn't rush to buy a humanoid robot for my house before buying anything. Ask yourself, where do I store it? How do I fix it if it trips down the stairs? Oh no! What does it happen when it falls on someone? Not on you, hopefully, but maybe, I don't know, your cat? You would be really upset. So this won't happen overnight. Robots are not taking over just anytime soon. But I believe deeply it will be a complicated mix of all these things. And our job as a society here in Europe is to tip the balance toward the optimistic side. That's why we're here. What does that mean? We need to invest urgently in education and retraining. Build a legal framework for AI. Don't miss this window. We must act now, and nobody's talking about it. I'm exasperated. I've been saying this for years in my home country. I'm not running for office. I don't score points by beating the drum on AI, but I'd love to hear even one politician say, my fellow Romanians, let's talk about this. Let's make a plan. We have no plan.
Apart of Romania, are there any others, some others journalists? English, eh? English. Thank you.
We're at the beginning of one of the greatest transformations in human history, and we're walking in blind. The future of robots is our future. And for it to be ours, we must design it with our own wisdom. But what do you think? Drop into the comments. We need to talk about this because I fear this whole conversation will get swallowed by a capitalism versus communism shouting match. And we'll miss another train. Then we'll compensate with cheap labor instead of building real prosperity. The future sounds good, but we have to claim it ourselves. And that's it for today. A long, complex piece. I made it with the team and a lot of personal effort. It's one of my first adventures in English spoken content, so I hope you're supportive in the chat. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you here for the next one.